Good morning, we are back at it. Next project. So here's the deal. The 78 here. We got so many projects going on right now, it's crazy. So I don't know where I'm at with filming on this, on what I told you or what I didn't tell you. The quick explanation of this is when I'm driving and hauling the camper, it's overheating. Plain and simple. It never used to overheat. Last winter, I noticed that the heater core was not blowing good heat anymore. So I'm thinking potentially the radiator and heater core or the coolant system is getting clogged. I don't know. I need to take it apart to know. So because it's a weekday and the radiator shop is open and it's over an hour away, this radiator in this truck, I'm pretty sure it's a 4-core. It's either 3 or 4-core. I want to say it's a 4-core. I bought it used in 2009. I was told that it came off of like a late 70s Suburban with a big block in it. It's a brass radiator and it's been working till now. I mean, I didn't do anything. I just put it in the truck. So that radiator's been working great. So it makes sense that it might be getting clogged. I'll rip into this thing, rip the radiator out of it, drain the coolant, and get this thing in the back of the car and drive it out there because we got to get this stuff done. So stay tuned and let's see what we get into. All right, I'll show you what we got. We got this step now. First, we got to drain the coolant, which there's a petcock on the bottom. We got to cut all these zip ties I have up holding this on. Mainly this shroud is held on by zip ties because most of it is cracked and broken, but there are some bolts here. And then I got to take this top plate off here. There's rubber grommets to hold that down. Hose clamps and all of the hoses got to come off. And then the way we mounted this radiator was custom deal here. Is this rod my dad made with a bend like a 90 on it. And that holds us down, and then it's double nutted at the bottom. It's hard to explain, or no, it's hard to see that. Transmission lines are bypassed. They're plugged on the tank of the radiator. There's separate auxiliary cooler, which, speaking of that, needs to be taken off. There's a couple of coolers in here that I have zip ties with plastic holding them in, as you can see right there. Let me get a 5-gallon bucket, get the coolant drain, keep the cats away from it, keep going. So on this radiator on the driver's side, down there at the bottom is the petcock. That's the drain right there. So you loosen that, it's gonna drain all over the steering gearbox and everything, but that's all right. You just put a bucket there, drain in there. It hits every single suspension part, but that's okay. It's nice green fluid. Got the radiator out. Here it is. It obviously was leaking. I mean, I knew that. It was just weeping. I mean, super slow. You can see the green here. I was not concerned at all about it. You can see right here where it was signs of leaking. I've known this. I think I bought it and it had signs of weepage like that. There you go. There's the inside there. That's what it looks like. It looks like they're all open, at least. I mean, it's got corrosion in there, but I'm no radiator expert, so throw it in the back of the old wagon. So I made it back from the radiator shop. This shop is a pretty well-known shop in the area, and they can recore this radiator. They gave me a rough estimate of about $500 to $600. It is a 4-tube core radiator. It's all brass and copper, so you know, it's an old school one, which you can't buy them like this really anymore that I know of. And the shops pretty much said that as well. He said pretty much everything is plastic tanks with aluminum. These are supposed to be decent radiators. I'm going to try and reuse this if I can. Now, I did ask them a couple of questions. Pretty much said, hey, does this thing look like it's totally need to be trashed? Can it be or should it be record, or can I just put it back in the truck because there's nothing wrong with it? Those were kind of the 3 things I was looking for. But you can see that it's kind of corroded, but it wasn't the worst. They did cap this off, pressurize it, and dunk it in a big vat of water and see if there's any leaks. And there's one leak. It's down in this corner here. So this is the towards the engine side, bottom of the radiator, and on this right here there is a leak down in here somewhere. And I pretty much knew it was leaking because look, it's all green. So I knew that there are some leaks in this radiator, but it doesn't drip. Like if you park at a parking spot and you look under there, there's not one drip. So to me, that's not a big deal. But where it does leak like crazy now is around this filler neck, or from the outlet of this. And I guarantee it never leaked here. So I guarantee you when I was prying the hose off of here today, I cracked that. So I'm gonna try and fix that with soldering. They said they solder them. They told me that's what they do. You solder them. I didn't know if they're brazed, I don't know. But we're gonna try and solder it. I've never done this before. I don't know if you're supposed to flux it, but I got plumber's flux here. This isn't a how-to. This is just how I'm doing it. So I'm gonna put a little bit of flux here, but it leaks right there in that crack. I think it was like right in that crack, if I remember correctly. It was pretty cool. You could clearly see any leaks when they had this thing submerged in the water. It's pretty much just like a plumbing fitting like in your house. I don't see why this would be an issue. And I'm just running this butane right now because he said if you get this too hot, you can have the tank get desoldered from the, I guess the cores or the tubes. I don't know all the terms, but he's like, don't overheat it because you'll have an issue. This solder does not want to go in there at all. It should want to like suck itself in. It's not doing that at all. Oh boy. Alright, well, I can't get this solder to lay right, but I kind of started getting it to kind of lay, where I started heating the tank instead of the neck, or the fitting, or whatever you want to call it first, and it kind of worked. I'm doing my own pressure test. I just electrical taped this, got a cork in here, and close everything up, and then on the overflow I'm using my air compressor, which I have regulated down to like 15 or 20 pounds, and I'm just pressurizing it. Now the electrical tape does leak, but I sprayed soapy water, and you can see right there that it's still leaking. See that? So I'm testing this solder job that I did all the way around it while Jen holds air to it. And you can see right there, there's a lot of air coming out right there. So there's my leak, right there's one. But I fixed the one on this side. I actually soldered that seal. So that is so cool. That means that what I'm doing is at least working. So I already soldered this side and it's not leaking. I'm kind of surprised. So what I'm doing is I'm just heating this pool that's already been soldered from when it was built last time, or the first time, or whatever. I'm heating this solder joint. I found this is probably not the right way to do it, but it worked on the other side, so I'm going to do it on this side. Heat this up, and then I just let this solder literally, once I start to see that it's melting, so okay, it's starting to melt, and then I'll start dripping it in, which is not normally how you do things. Just like that, and it kind of adds to the pool. My uncle told me that as fast as you can fill this thing, it should flow through and empty out as fast as you can fill it. And the garden hose is, you know, pretty high pressure. I'm holding it like that. Oh, there it goes. I wouldn't say it's that clogged. I wouldn't call that clogged.
This might be a stupid question, but like, where does the water flow in there?
Look right in there. And you can see like rusted like four things. Do you see them? They're like little dots with white around them, and each hole is one of these slots, and that goes in like that. They're like,
so it's just those straight lines that hold water?
Yeah, and then these things are just
dissipate heat?
Exactly. So these are like, I don't know if they're like
area.
Yeah, I don't know if these are like flat tubes or if they're
so they're hollow.
What's that?
Those flat tubes.
Yeah. That's what.
Got it. Okay.
But that's why there's not much it's a pretty tiny hole, so they can get clogged with all the
calcium or whatever,
all that
kind of minerals.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
Alright, see, I'm learning right along with the YouTube channel. It'll just be coming out of the...
see how fast it gets to that side. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn fast, in my opinion. I don't do this to... I'm just gonna keep flushing this and
then what?
put it back in the truck, because I don't think this is clogged. I mean, I feel like if this was clogged, it would be very restrictive. And it's taking, like, it's flowing this much water, because if it wasn't, this would start backing up and shooting out at me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's flowing it all and going out because I'm holding it full bore, right? Full bore. All that water is going out right there. I would consider that amount of water going through the engine enough. The backyard science is gonna say that it's good. So I have the thermostat with a thermometer and water, and the thermostat is 180 degree Fahrenheit thermostat. So let's see where it opens. Alright, we're at 180. Okay, I'm trying this again. I only have a little bit of water in it this time. And I can see the ridge that it normally rides on, like that seal when it opens. We're at 170 now. 74, 76, 179, 180. Okay, we're at 195. Okay, it is opening. 198, 199, 200. Okay, it is open. So it's at 204. So it really opens at like 195. Okay, it closed back up when I pulled it out of there. So the thermostat is working a little bit higher than what it should be, but it does work. So we got the upper radiator hose off, thermostat housing situation here. And I'm going to clean that up because I got a new gasket, because we're going to reassemble this. So I'm going to use a scraper and some sandpaper and get that cleaned up. So after using the scraper here, there's actually ridges on here. So I went with the red Scotch Brite, and that definitely cleaned it up. I must have put Permatex like RTV around this previously. This time I'm going to use Forma gasket number 2. I actually don't know if it works for coolant, but it probably does. I'm just going to do it anyway. And then I took a rat tail file and went in between here where the bolts were, because it was super corroded in there. So now they slide right in there. These were the 2 bolts for holding the thermostat housing down. This one was a stud for some reason. I don't know why. I wasn't really used as one. So replacement for that I found right here to clean these threads up. This guy here, I don't have one this small. That's short, so I'm probably just going to clean up those threads and reuse it. Alright, I got the thermostat housing gasket on there. It's actually like has like a double stick sided to it, which is kind of neat. So I did put Permatex number 2 gasket sealer on the inside, just a little bead around. See, I just got it on my finger there. Just so that the double stick still works and it still adheres to this housing, which is like some sort of aluminum zinc style metal. And then the bolts here, I put the bolts in to make sure that it was in the right location. And then I come over here to the intake manifold, and I was looking to see if these bolt holes share, but they're blind holes and they don't share the water jacket. I didn't know. I'm just going to use a little bit of thread sealer on the right at the shoulder of the bolt here, just right here, because when that gets bolted down, there may be some weepage here and it might seal that up better. So I got the thermostat in with the Permatex number 2 on the intake manifold. Then I have the bolts in there with that gasket, and I actually put a little, well, I put the thread sealer on the top of the neck shoulder of the bolts, and then I put a little anti-seize in there because those threads were a little crunchy going in. So we're gonna try and see if that helps. Plus they were super corroded when I pulled them out of there. Got the radiator in. Pretty good. Did not put the transmission cooler line or coolers up. They're zip tied through the radiator with some homemade deals, and they're kind of a pain. I got to take the grill off to do it. to do it easily. So then I gotta take the cooler off. It's just all this stuff. So I want to test this thing, and I want to see if this radiator leaks. So that's my main deal right now, because if the radiator leaks, then it's kind of like stop what you're doing, take the radiator back out. So what I'm going to do is just fill this with distilled water for now. I know there's some coolant still left in the system, but that's alright. I just want to fill it with water in case I got to drain it back down again. Let's do this. Got this radiator in, and we got this thing running. Water temp's at just shy of 180. Thermostat opens up at about 190 to 195. It's a 180 thermostat. There's your coolant. It's moving. The other thing is, when I first started it, it was really low on coolant. You know, I was down to here, so I was just filling it, and it was just dumping in from the return from the heater core. So that's pretty much tells me that it's most likely not a clogged heater core. I don't know for sure, but it was dumping in. Finally getting back onto this project. I don't remember what I said, but maybe I'll recap in case I missed it. So I took the radiator out of this truck, brought it to the radiator shop. They were going to charge a lot of money to re-core it, roughly $500. I guess it's not cheap anymore, and it's hard to find shops that even will do it. So it's not really worth getting it re-cored when you can get a nice upgraded new one for that much money or less potentially. I mean, you can get some cheaper ones off of various websites with plastic tanks and aluminum for like, you know, $300 roughly, but that's, you don't know the quality. So this one's brass and copper. I know, well, it did work. It did have a slight leak. I tested it and there is no leaks. If there are any leaks, it's not bad, similar to how it was before. But I had all water in it, so then what I did was I just drained all of the water, which had coolant in it, back out. It was about 2 gallons. Drained that with the petcock, and I just filled it with a 50-50 mix of coolant and distilled water. You can see it there, it's a little bit low. I doubt that this is gonna fix the problem, because it really didn't do anything. I took the radiator out. I did flush it with the garden hose, and some rust and calcium deposits came out, but it wasn't bad. I mean, it flowed. So we're gonna run it and see if it fixes the problem of it still overheating. But we're gonna try and keep these coolant temps below the 235 that it hit. I mean, it's not uncommon for this thing when I'm hauling the camper over some hills to hit 220. I mean, I'm like okay with 220 on these recent trips, which is not good. This thing should not be overheating like that. I hit 235 Fahrenheit coolant temp, water temp. If it hit 240, I was pulling over. I didn't, but so anyway, I had to pull over on some of the mountain passes that I was going over and Maine and stuff. So there's an issue. Letting her warm up. Alright, she's warmed up. Let's get the camper on it. Alright, gonna pull this hill. See if the temp goes up. Right now we're at 205. See if we can get this thing up to 220. I'll let you know. Well, pulled that hill. Overheated. Or it's overheating. It's like 225, 230 degrees. Water temp and oil pressure is like 10. Trans temp's at 200. Let's pop the hood, see if she's leaking. Alright, so we got a problem. It's leaking coolant from the upper radiator hose. See if I can tighten that hose clamp. It's the first time getting this thing super hot, so. But what isn't leaking is the resoldered joint. That's kind of wild. Let's see if I can tighten that hose clamp. So it's been a couple of weeks since that last footage, but we took the truck with the camper and we tested it. We probably drove maybe 100 miles, pulled a couple of hills, probably gained about 500 feet of elevation, pulling some decent hills. Nothing insane, but decent. And the truck did not overheat, but there were some other things that we did. That's gonna wrap up what we did with the cooling system on this truck recently. Stay tuned to the next video where we are going to be diving into other modifications that include ignition. Some of you probably already know where we're going with that, but stay tuned and I'll see you on the next video.